Welcome back. Well, putting peacekeeping forces in place is just one step in resolving the Darfur conflict. Negotiators have been trying to broker peace deals, most recently last year. The Darfur peace agreement was drawn up in Abuja in Nigeria in May 2006. Well, it covers security, wealth and power sharing. The agreement followed 2 years of talks mediated by the African Union. Under it, a ceasefire would come into effect, rebel groups would have to disarm, and civilians would be protected from violence and forced displacement. But only one of 3 negotiating rebel groups actually signed the agreement. Since then, it has missed deadlines and has all but fallen apart with the formation of a new rebel coalition. Well, we're joined now by our guest once again in London, Hassan Sati, Sudanese writer and political analyst. In Khartoum by Ambassador Ali Sadiq, spokesman for the Sudanese Foreign Ministry. And on the line from Washington, Alex Dewal, a leading British writer and researcher on African issues. He was also seconded to the African Union mediation team on Darfur. Once again, I should also mention that the UN was unable to provide us with an official to participate in this discussion. Well, perhaps I'll start once more with Mr. Hassan Sati. Looking at the situation, a deal has been struck to send peacekeepers, but will that move the political process forward 1 inch?
On one condition, when you talk about the other factions, which they reject Abuja, about that time they are almost 2 or 3. Now they are 14, as I told you. The other problem which came after 2006, May 2006, is that many of these leaders of the factions are, scattered there around the capitals around Sudan. You have those who are giving an ear and eye to Asmara. Others are giving to Tripoli. A third group is for Chad. Just 2 days ago, I know that Ahmed Abdel Chafi is one of the prominent leaders of Sudan Liberation Army, is in Kampala. So I think, talking about the decision, I'm thinking that many of them by now, they do not have the real decision to decide for themselves. Right. Because, the issue is now regional. Right, it is not that pure Sudanese Darfur issue. Right, it is now regionalized. And from the other aspect, it is internationalized also.
Okay, let's bring in Ambassador Sadiq into the discussion once again. Do you think the UN could have better used its time rather than all this time that was wasted discussing details of a peacekeeping force and actually encouraging the parties that haven't signed to sign up to the peace agreement?
Yeah, that is, yes, because you see, when we talk about the hybrid operation, we refer to 3 main components. One of them is the peacekeeping, the other is the political solution, the political process, and the third is the humanitarian track. When the African Union and Sudan government and later the UN joined, they discussed these 3 tracks in Addis and in Abuja, and it was agreed that the political process should be given priority, because when you bring together those who are opposing the Abuja agreement and if they join in one way or another, then a very big step would be achieved toward the final solution of the Darfur issue. Right now, the 2 envoys of the African Union, Dr. Salim Ahmed Salim, and of the United Nations, Yan Eliasson, are coming very soon to the area so that they will disclose a roadmap for the negotiations between the government and the opposers of Abuja. And by that, if we reach that level, I think together with the achievement which has been reached this week with the United Nations Security Council and with the hybrid operation now waiting for approval, I think we will be putting the right step.
All right,
the first step on the right track.
Let's turn to Alex Dewal once again. You said earlier that this force is not going to be able to do things like, arrest suspects or wanted people. It's got a very limited mandate. It's coming quite late in the game. Will it at least be able to restore some security and stability? And in effect, that might help the political process. What do you think?
I very much hope it will. The people of Darfur are crying out for protection, for some measure of security against the lawlessness that is rampant. The fact there are now numerous militia, not only the rebel groups, but also many of the militia that were armed by the government are out of control. They've been fighting each other. But, there have been major security incidents, major battles between groups that were armed by the government in an earlier stage of this conflict. And I think if the force could come in and provide a modicum of security for the displaced camps, then it would be a huge step forward, because that's one thing that ordinary people of Darfur are crying out for. Having said that, it's an illusion, I think, to think that troops alone can do this. 90% of the work of the force will be political and community liaison. Only 10% should be force or the threat of force. And that's before we even get to grips with looking at long-term political solutions. All
right, you're talking about the use of force or threats against Sudan. Where do issues like sanctions, the possibilities or suggestions of establishing no-fly zones, embargoes, is that completely off the table?
Well, it doesn't look as though it is completely off the table. Personally, I think a no-fly zone, coercive military action, airstrikes, etc., would be a disaster. I think it's an act of recklessness even to propose them, as some advocates are doing in the city, which I'm talking from Washington, D.C. I think that an act of war would have disastrous humanitarian consequences to begin with. It would close down an aid operation that has frankly been really remarkably successful in saving very, very many lives. And it would, I think, seriously jeopardize the already rather tenuous political process of democratization that is underway in Sudan. So I'm counselling very strongly against that.
All right, let's turn to Hassan Sati. Looking at some of the editorials in Sudanese newspapers, seems that some are very confident that threats of sanctions and other measures, that the UN officials are now telling Sudanese officials privately that that is no longer an avenue the UN would pursue now that there is this agreement to deploy more troops. How do you read that?
You know, the refusal of deployment of troops came even from the leadership. They swear, they say they are not going to agree with any international forces. In a way, when they come to this issue now, I think at least putting more action on Sudan from Security Council is off the table now. A non-fly zone is off the table, but still, you know, they are nightmare scenarios in this deployment. Even if the government agrees, this regime started a fundamental Islamic regime in 1989, and now, even when we talk about southern and northern peace, which was achieved 2 years ago. Now, there in northern Sudan, there are people who are against that agreement.
All right, I'm sorry, I'm going to try and, if we are running out of time,
going to have factions from political Islam against the deployment, let me finish, please.
Sorry, but we are running out of time. I'd just like to quickly bring in Ambassador Sadiq. And you were mentioning earlier on the point of your optimism for a political process being sorted out now. But isn't it true, critics would say, that some of these key issues have not been tackled? The distribution of wealth, deadlines have been missed when the Abuja Accord. Nothing has been done to actually tackle these issues.
How can you tackle these issues without sitting together with your opponents?
But there are, critics would say there are deadlines for measures to be taken in the Abuja Accord itself which have been missed. Disarming of militias.
This issue, the issue of Abuja, was yesterday discussed with the members of the Security Council, and they have been briefed on the achievements made so far. Yes, there are some difficulties. This is not a secret. We are in some areas behind the schedule. It is true, but still we are moving in the implementation of the Abuja Agreement.
All right, well, we'll have to leave the discussion there because we are running out of time. We'd like to thank all of our guests, Hassan Sati, Sudanese writer and political analyst who joined us from London, Ambassador Ali Sadiq, spokesman for the Sudanese Foreign Affairs Ministry, who joined us from Khartoum, and of course Alex de Waal, writer and activist. Well, and thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. As always, we welcome your comments and suggestions. Feel free to email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net Once again, that's Inside Story at aljazeera.net. But for now, on behalf of the team and from me, it's goodbye and stay with Al Jazeera.